So today we're going to be taking a look at a scenario where North and South Asia go to war. Now technically there isn't like a true North or South Asia, and more so in real life, South Asia refers to the Indian subcontinent, which includes India, Pakistan, Nepal, and Sri Lanka. But in this video we're going to be extending South Asia's reach over into the entirety of the Middle East. And then of course we're going to be including Southeast Asia as well, which includes the Philippines, Indonesia, and a lot of these countries over here in the Indochina region. And then as for North Asia, once again, there is no definitive North Asia in real life in terms of geographic terms. So here we're including Central Asia with all of these stand countries: Russia, Mongolia, China, the Koreas, Japan, and then Taiwan. These two sides will be duking it out in this video and going to war with each other. So if you guys do enjoy today's video, make sure to leave a like on it and subscribe to the channel if you're new. All of the support is greatly appreciated as we're trying to get to 200,000 subscribers by August 1st. And if we do hit that goal, I will be releasing a special vlog on this channel. But I do want to say, if we do not reach the goal before August 1st, the video will likely not be posted. So this is a one-time opportunity here. Make sure to show some support on this video and the channel overall, share it with some friends, and let's go ahead and jump straight into the video. So the two sides here, I believe, are actually pretty evenly matched. Now, some people might say the Caucasus Mountain countries are European, or that Russia shouldn't be included because it's also European, or more so, the base of its population is in the European region. While those arguments can be valid, I think that for balancing purposes, we're going to have to roll with this. And let's go ahead and start the fighting. So on the first front line, we have Russia already being in Georgia. They have, of course, South Ossetia and Abkhazia. But from here, they will be extending their forces down south right towards Georgia's capital, which they will be able to take with relative ease. Now, the Ukraine war, we're going to have to go ahead and ignore that. I forgot the color in Crimea. But of course, Ukraine is not an Asian country, so we're not going to worry about that conflict at all, or really any other realistic geopolitical aspects. This is just a pure one-on-one North versus South Asia, but Russia will be fully occupying all of Georgia, and from here they will send their forces down into Azerbaijan, and much similarly they will be able to take their capital over here in the city of Baku. Armenia's capital is now gone. Once again, checking the city layer, Yerevan. That is captured by Russian forces, and I know that the Caucasus Mountains are here and that Russia would more than likely have a difficult time traversing that terrain, but I do want to emphasize that this isn't just an all-at-once advance. This would be a slow overtime advance. Russian special forces would have to slowly take this region over, but for the sake of the video's pacing, I do like to show this happening all at once so we don't have like an hour-long recording. Also, this is like the first time I've ever recorded, edited, and posted a video in the same day. I'm recording this on July 16th at 1 in the morning, and it's posted in 10 hours. I don't think I've ever done that before. This is a first time experience for me. Anyway, most of you are probably watching in the future, making that information irrelevant. But now we head on over here to Vietnam, where Chinese forces will be entering into the north of the country, immediately threatening their capital city of Hanau. Pronunciation, as you guys know by now, is not my strong suit. I'm not very good at pronouncing city names that are not in English or Spanish. Wait. Don't move. But China's forces will make an advance into Vietnam. They will also make a small advance into the northeastern portion of Myanmar. But overall, Chinese forces will be having to deal with the hard time that is the Himalayan mountains. We have to bring this up because it is a major geographical feature that will be separating a lot of the fighting, because the strongest country on the red team is China and the strongest country on the blue team is India. But they are separated by the ginormous Himalayan mountains, which span all the way down through here. Invading into this area is very hard, making this video and the scenario a little bit more interesting. These countries are going to have to get super creative in order to invade each other. But now we head over here to Turkmenistan and Iran, where we have Iranian forces crossing the border and easily taking over the capital city of Turkmenistan. These Central Asian countries are probably some of the weaker countries on this map and in this scenario. We do have like Laos and Cambodia, and then Brunei is the weakest country, period. But for the blue team, this is actually good news, because they could just roll right into Central Asia until the Russian and Chinese forces come to aid them. So like I was saying, for now, these guys are going to have a pretty easy time pushing up into these Central Asian countries. This is more than likely the armies of the entire Middle East in this region, being split between this front line, of course, and then over here in the Caucasus Mountains where they're dealing with Russia. The Afghan army would also likely move out and go into Tajikistan. But back over here in Southeast Asia / the South China Sea region, we have China making a landing in northern the Philippines. Northern the Philippines? I don't want to say northern Philippines. Well, I guess I could say that, but that doesn't sound right because you always usually say the Philippines. But they make a landing along with some other allies, including the Koreas and Japan and Taiwan. And the Philippines will struggle to hold off the East Asian army, as they have a pretty easy time just rolling down through these islands here. Japan is awfully familiar with this region, making the invasion go even easier, but hopefully they're not doing the heinous war crimes that they were doing in World War II. That would not be good, especially in a modern context. But the Philippines will be the first country eliminated, believe it or not. They are a medium power. Well, no, they're not the first country eliminated. Apparently I have short-term memory loss. The Caucasus are gone, but they are technically the first like medium to major power eliminated. The Philippines are no laughing joke. Of course, their military is very capable. They are economically stable, and they're very close with the West, and more specifically the United States. But we're not really accounting for any of that here. This is just a pure Asian battle royale. So the Philippines will fall, and this will open the gates for East Asia to invade further down into Southeast Asia, more specifically Malaysia, Indonesia, and Brunei. But for now, we're heading back over here to the Caucasian mountain front, because the Middle Eastern countries will be pushing back against Russia, liberating the capital of Armenia, and also liberating the capital of Azerbaijan. An attempt will be made to push up into the capital of Georgia. However, that attempt will fail as Russian forces have fortified the area. Most of Azerbaijan is retaken, but once again, the Russians are using the mountains to their advantage, fortifying the front line and holding out, hoping for aid from their other allies, more specifically probably China and the Koreas, because we all know North Korea has a tendency to aid Russia in foreign wars. Back over here in the Central Asian front, it is going to continue to go well for the blue team here. Once again, these are very weak countries, so they will have no problem pushing right up against this river here in Turkmenistan and following all the way up to the border of Uzbekistan. Additionally, Afghan forces being aided by Pakistani and Indian troops will take the capital of Tajikistan, which doesn't even have a name on this map. That's cool. I feel like all capital cities should probably have a name, but that's a map chart thing, not a me thing. But a major city that does have a name is the capital of Uzbekistan, which is Tashkent. Hope I said that right. But they lose their capital city to blue team forces, and at this point, it is pretty obvious that the blue team is focusing its major advances in the Central Asian region. This is the weakest part of the red team, so this is where you want to go to cause balance issues on their side. Now, as for the red team, it's going to be a little bit complicated because there are many areas of power in the blue team. You have the Indian subcontinent, more specifically India and Pakistan, but then you have the entire Middle Eastern region all the way over here in the west. You have Israel, Turkey, Iran, and Saudi Arabia. And then even in Southeast Asia, you have Vietnam and Indonesia, who are very capable and have good defensive forces, so this war is a very hard war, and more than likely it will be a war of attrition between the red and blue teams. But with that being said, Chinese forces eventually break through the front line in Vietnam, and their capital city is lost. North Asia will then make a series of landings along the Vietnamese coast, cutting the country into multiple pieces before unifying their front line, wiping out northern Vietnam, and then advancing south into southern Vietnam. Now, this is a very jungly area. The United States knows that very well when they lost in Vietnam and the Indochina region, but these countries are a little bit more familiar with navigating this kind of terrain. Of course, China is right on the border of Vietnam, meaning that their surveillance, their military strategists, and all of the above likely had ample time to analyze and create an ample strategy, whereas the Americans in the 70s and 60s, we're gonna make fun of them for losing again. I was gonna make a reason as to why they lost, but yeah, it was just not good war, bad war, failure of a war. We need to reiterate that. A lot of Americans do not know that Vietnam was a complete failure. Anyway, Laos has capitulated, and the East Asians have broken through the southeastern front line, and this is where the blue team at this point is most vulnerable, meaning that countries like India and Pakistan will likely have to send their forces over here to deal with the advancing Chinese and other East Asian armies. Are they quick enough though? Probably not, because China and friends have just taken over all of Vietnam, and with that, they've also taken over the capital of Cambodia. And with the fall of their capital and coastal areas, we have Cambodia capitulating, meaning that Thailand is the last link holding out, connecting these southeastern countries down here in Indonesia and Malaysia up here to countries like Myanmar, India, and more. So there will be a very heavy defensive focus on protecting Thailand, which actually does slow down the advance of East Asian armies. Eventually, this front line will fall as India and other countries have managed to reorganize their troops into an ample defensive force capable of stopping the red team's move into Southeast Asia. Back over in Central Asia, we see that the red team still has not responded to the blue team's advance. They are letting these Central Asian countries fall, and Pakistan, Iran, and India are certainly in the driver's seat right now as their troops now enter into southern Kazakhstan. Now, there is a little bit of a geographical challenge with invading up into Kyrgyzstan and over here into this part of China, of course. Even like the remainder of Tajikistan, and if not all of Tajikistan, is a part of a very big mountain range. So realistically, rolling tanks into that region isn't too likely. You'll probably need special forces, paratroopers, stuff like that. So instead, the blue team will make their way up to this lake in Kazakhstan, which gives them a natural barrier and technically a natural defense as well. That can be used two ways though. Kazakhstan can also use it as a natural defense barrier. Back over in the Caucasus, we have the Russians breaking through the front line once again, but their gains are very small as Russia is facing up against the entirety of the Middle East, and a combined army down here would certainly rival that of Russia's. So once again, Russia is going to have to rely on East Asia finishing off this region in order for their troops to come over and save Russia from, losing this war of attrition and eventually being invaded. It's kind of a game of time. Who can wipe out each other first? Will the Middle East be able to take on Russia first, or will China be able to take out all of Southeast Asia first? Let's see. Of course, India has the unfortunate job of splitting up their armies between these two front lines, which is actually good news for the red team. A divided India means that it would be easier to invade them should you ever have to. Back in Central Asia, this front line is still expanding in the favor of the blue team. At this point now, they are making moves to wrap around the Caspian Sea a little bit and start to threaten some of this upper Russian territory, maybe this major city here, which used to be Stalingrad, but now is called Volgograd. But with Kazakhstan now losing a lot of land, the worries of the red team are certainly not to be ignored, because Uzbekistan has just capitulated and the entirety of the blue team's army is now moving only in Kazakh's territory. Back in Southeast Asia, this little front line that is stalling is indeed still stalling. It is at this point even. India and Pakistan have sent troops to rival that of China and Korea's, as well as Japan's. But this does open the door of opportunity because they will now be making a landing over here in the northern tip of Borneo in Indonesia, and this is a very secretive landing here. There was a lot of planning that went into it, and it's almost to the scale of that of D-Day. Of course, D-Day was the largest amphibious landing in history. I don't want to call it the same level as that because D-Day was insane, and an invasion of Borneo certainly wouldn't account to the same amount of value of a invasion of France. But just to kind of give you an idea of how planned and strategized this landing was, it's going very well, and they take over half of Malaysia as well as Brunei, and Indonesian forces are failing to protect their island as Chinese, Japanese, and Korean troops simply just put the hammer down on them, and eventually Borneo will be lost, which creates a little bit of an issue down in this region because now you have basically a huge red team base right in the middle of Indonesia. Back to the colors on the map shifting though, the blue team is still taking over land from the red team. The Russian defensive forces at this point are helping out Kazakhstan, of course. We would also like to imagine that Mongolia and China are helping out Kazakhstan as well. But China is mostly occupied with Southeast Asia, keeping all this land under their control, as well as the Philippines and then Borneo. Meaning that available troops over for Kazakhstan are a lot less than they should be, making the blue team's invasion of the stands a lot easier. And eventually they will start a spearhead up towards the capital of Kazakhstan. But this spearhead will eventually begin to formulate, and they will reach the gates of the capital of Kazakhstan, but will be stopped. And after attempting to seize the city, they will be pushed back by the Kazakh and Russian armies. This is a major loss for the blue team. A ton of troops were lost, and it leads to a little bit of pushback on this front line, specifically around this lake area, as Kazakhstan secures all of the land around it. The Caucasus Mountain front line is finally starting to push away Russia's favor. The capital of Georgia will be liberated, and all of Azerbaijan will be liberated. The Russians slowly but surely are being pushed out of the Caucasus Mountains and back into their own territory until eventually they are completely out and Georgia is completely liberated. Back down in Southeast Asia, China and friends have a decision to make. Do you go after Thailand, take out Bangkok, and then, kind of like, I guess, strangle Malaysia and Indonesia because they don't have those supply routes through here. Although likely they wouldn't be using supply routes through there. They would be using supply routes through the Indian Ocean between them and India. But logistically, it does make sense to go ahead and take Bangkok. So they will go ahead and formulate an army to take it. And this will be the bloodiest battle of the war so far, but it will end in a red team victory. And from here, they will span out and cut off Thailand from this little, I like to call it the tail of Thailand, and aka the tip of Malaysia, pause. But like I was just saying, I don't think this would have too much issue with like supply routes and stuff because there is the ocean right there, the Strait of Malacca, you go through that, and then you're easily to India. But now the East Asians will be taking out this island here. I don't know the actual name of it. I like to call it the Star Island for obvious reasons. Also, this major city's in the middle of the ocean. Anyway, with Indonesia losing another island, their defensive span across their chain of islands is starting to weaken severely as they lose out on this entire area over here in the island of Guinea. And then slowly but surely, the Chinese, aided by Japanese strategists, will start to island hop across these chains of islands until eventually they get over here to Timor-Leste. And also the half of the island that Indonesia has is gone as well. But the main populated areas, as you can see from the major city map in Indonesia, are over here in Sumatra and then the main island of Java. So invading into here is going to get a little bit difficult. They will start their island hopping across these islands, but will be stopped at this one as they are right off the coast of Java, but go no further as Indonesia has has set up a pretty good defensive fortress along their 2 islands. The red team will now move further down into this peninsula until they will be stopped at Malaysia. This is called the Malay Peninsula. I knew that. I just didn't. Okay, I need to reiterate to you guys a lot. I know things. I promise you. I don't want to look stupid in these videos. I know geographical terms and names of stuff. I just forget them a lot. It's probably due to me like not using these terms often. Like I don't really say the Malay Peninsula often. We don't really talk about Malaysia a lot, but it's just something that I know, but I just don't use. It's like not relevant enough for me to use often, so I forget it. Blah, blah, blah. Anyway, Malaysia here. They're also going to set up a pretty good defensive front here, but the Chinese and the other East Asians will slowly but surely pinch their way into Malaysia, getting straight towards their capital city down here in Kuala Lumpur. Kuala Lumpur? What? Okay, we're heading back over to Central Asia where it's getting a little bit interesting. The Middle East, being fueled by endless oil supplies, are putting their tanks in very interesting situations. Those interesting situations include traversing entire mountain ranges, putting tanks in hot air balloons and then dropping them over the mountains, and absolutely decimating the Russians and drowning them in oil. In fact, they've just created a new invention. It's called the oil gate. Simple enough, you build a giant gate right here, and then when you want to drown a bunch of Russians in oil, you just open the gate. Hundreds of millions of tons of oil just flows right on in and everyone drowns. Probably against the Geneva Convention. That would only be important though if I recognize the Geneva Convention. I don't. Okay, but in all seriousness, the Russians will start to be pushed back by the Middle Eastern armies. I've already given my explanation as to why this would happen earlier, but do know, of course, the Russians would not be falling back this quickly. Once again, this is more of a pacing thing of me coloring in all of this in like one turn. In all reality, all the fronts that I've been talking about so far would all happen at once, but I'm not a traditional mapper. I don't really know what I would call myself. It's what kind of mapping this is. But you know, traditional mapping, you see the entire picture, you see all the fronts moving at once. I physically cannot do that, so we're doing turn-based stuff. That's something that I've like really never mentioned in any of my videos before, but I've seen a lot of comments that are talking about like, you know, A fell too fast, or B would not be able to invade them that fast, or, you know, C capitulated way too soon. I know, but it's a pacing thing. I don't want this video to be 2 hours long. But with the blue team on the gates of Volgograd, we have Russia really crying out for help here. They need the aid of China, the Koreas, and Japan. This is the economic capital of the red team over here, whereas the economical capital of the blue team is in India, of course. Militarily, though, this also shifts over here for the red team. All of the military capital of the red team is over here in East Asia, whereas for the blue team, it's kind of all over the place. India, of course, sticks out as number 1 in the blue team. Pakistan's right there, right next to them at number 2. But then you have Indonesia all the way down here. And then we have the Middle East over here. There are some weak points like in Afghanistan, the Caucasus, but those are mostly fortified. At least Afghanistan's fortified by mountains and the Taliban. Eventually the entire Caspian coast will be captured, and the blue team is making a strive towards the border of Russia over here, because as you can see, there is a bunch of major cities right here, and capturing major cities of course cripples your enemy, so they want to do that as soon as possible. China, being frustrated by the lack of ability by their allies, will start to blitz into Malaysia. This is a very costly campaign, but they are able to take out the entirety of Malaysia, as well as Singapore, another area of economical capital in the red team. And then very similar to what we just saw, the red team will make a series of very costly and expensive landings on the island of Sumatra in the country of Indonesia. I'm talking hundreds of thousands of troops are being lost in this war. Now the red team has a lot of troops to use. China's very populated. India is as well. It's actually a good question to ask. Who has more population between the red and blue teams? I'm going to say the blue team, because they have countries like Bangladesh, which is I think around 180 million or 200 million. You have Pakistan, over 100 million. Indonesia, of course, one of the most populated countries in the world. The red team has China. They have the Koreas, or more so South Korea. Well, no, both the Koreas, Japan, and Russia. So the population numbers might actually just go to the blue team, which means they would have technically the raw troop advantage, assuming they militarize their population and go into total war. I don't believe we got into that stage yet, but eventually Indonesia will be crippled, cut off, and navally blockaded, which would starve the country. I do believe Indonesia would have to choose to surrender after that. The red team's navy was able to dominate this region, and that is why we have Indonesia and all of Southeast Asia falling right here. With this region out of the war, India will likely pull its troops back into the country of Myanmar, but even then, Myanmar is one of those countries that is just kind of politically all over the place, very dysfunctional. They've had a few military coups in their history. They've also done a genocide. I read a whole book on the Rohingya genocide in school. It was very interesting. I would suggest it to you if I remember the name. But it was a very good read. It was based on a true story. I really got to remember what it was called. Okay, it was called First They Erased Our Name by Habib Haram. Very good book. I recommend it. And this genocide, I guess I'll take a moment to talk about it a little bit more. And this is what I've heard from the book and from just, me taking classes on world events and more specifically hidden world events, because the Rohingya genocide is not well known. A lot of people do not know about the genocide in Myanmar. The UN has done little to nothing to address this as of when the book was published, which I don't know the publishing date. I just had to go through all my Amazon orders to find it. I should have looked before I closed out. But yeah, it's a very sad genocide. Definitely read the book if you're interested. But as you can see here, the red team is now nearing the capital of Bangladesh. Now, Bangladesh, another one of those densely populated countries. I would like to imagine that the people at this point are arming their civilians, making an advance into Bangladesh extremely difficult. Now, they have taken a major city so far, but that has come at the cost of hundreds of thousands of lives. And this war overall has probably eclipsed a couple of million of deaths, which is definitely unfortunate. But back over in Russia, we have the capturing of Volgograd, and this will send ripples across Russia because Stalingrad, which, in World War II never got fully annexed or occupied, was kind of like the moral turn for the USSR in World War II. That and Kursk, of course, which in a previous video I called the largest battle in history. That was wrong. I think it was the largest armored battle in history that happened in the Battle of Kursk in World War II. But my main point is losing this city is a big moral hit for Russia and their army. Talking about Crimea, without Russia having ample access to the Black Sea via their land over here, the Crimeans would likely fall. Maybe Turkey takes that back and makes a claim over it. But now the red team is going to stop its advance over here in the east, and they're going to start to re-strategize a little bit. For the most part, the blue team is on the offensive. They are invading up into this area of Russia, and their goal, of course, is to wipe out Russia. Now, if China were to lose Russia in this war, they would lose. There is no winning this war without Russia, because Russia, largest country in the world, a lot of oil over in Siberia. If Russia capitulates, then China has the responsibility of going up and occupying all of this land, and that is a lot of land to occupy and control. So losing Russia is a big no-no, just like losing India for the blue team is also a big no-no. So this front line over here will not be abandoned, but it will just turn into a pure defensive front, which gives the blue team opportunity to push back against the Chinese army and even start to liberate this area of India. But as we know, the pendulum likes to swing back and forth, and with the removal of troops in this area comes the additional troops in this area, and let me tell you, it hits hard. A huge counteroffensive will be carried out in Kazakhstan, linking back up to the Caspian Sea and also aiding Russia as these troops just put foot to Russia just gets liberated. Basically, the Middle Eastern armies are pushed all the way back to their border in a very, very quick campaign. So with the collapse of the blue team's advance into Russia comes a huge moral hit for them as well. Russia has retaken the city of Volgograd, and that gives them their morale back. In Kazakhstan, we see not like the same speed, but pretty quick liberation. The red team will make a point of emphasis of getting to the capital of Uzbekistan, in which they do with relative ease, actually. But once again, the pendulum does like to swing around with a lot of troops over here. The blue team is losing troops here, and also they're gaining troops on this front line as they will make a push into and liberate all of India. And are now starting to actually liberate Myanmar as well, which is not to the pleasure of the red team. They did not want the blue team to push back this far. And after Myanmar's capital is taken, there are some generals that are fired. So let's do this. Let's split up our armies a little bit. Japan and Korea and Taiwan, you'll be tasked with defending this area from India, whereas China, Mongolia, and other Central Asian countries will be tasked with liberating this area from the blue team. The blue team strategy is this: hold the Caucasian front line and then spend troops up into this area to keep your claims, and also pour hundreds of thousands of troops into Southeast Asia. I don't know about you, but I do believe that the hundreds of thousands of troops of the blue team would be able to beat back the defensive forces of the Koreas, Japan, and Taiwan, and forces then enter into Thailand, and then a few more generals are fired. With China now sending a majority of its military up to deal with Kazakhstan, we have the blue team and the Middle Eastern army starting to fall back. I just want to let you guys know that the scale of this war would be insane. Some of the top military powers in the world are involved in this conflict. So like, the fighting is brutal and violent. This is like tough fighting. This is, a lot of people are dying in this war. This is a very bloody war. And at the end of the day, no matter which side I make win this video, people are going to be unhappy. But a major development has just occurred in Central Asia. The red team has completely liberated all of the region. We're back to square one. The blue team no longer has any territory in the red team, and at this point the red team is officially winning the war. So the red team having this under their belt already is good news for them in the end game, but first they need to get this front line under control, and this is where the two giants will clash. India and China are now going to be fighting each other pretty much one-on-one. China's army will return from Central Asia after demanding that these guys get their SHIT together. Russia will also start to conscript their population, bolstering their forces and defensive forces, while China probably also is conscripting people into their army to fight back against India, who is also conscripting people. We're getting to the point in the war where civilians are being dragged into the fighting, and that's never a good thing, of course. But untrained civilians on the front line means even more death, making this war even bloodier, but the red team does suffice in pushing back against the blue team. They will be stopped pretty much at the border of India, and a pretty solid front line is set up right here. So let's turn our focus over here to the Middle East. This is what's supplying the war for the blue team. This is where your oil and resources is. There's also a lot of economical capital in this region. But the main thing is oil. You need your oil to supply your tanks, your aircraft, your army vehicles, your troop transportation vehicles, trains. Maybe not trains, because you can run those off of coal. But coal, wait, fossil fuel, same thing as oil. You right? Yeah, definitely not the same thing. Fossil fuel, not the same thing. Coal is not liquid, right? Is coal liquid? I'm joking, of course. And just to prove it, here's a picture of coal on the screen. It's not liquid, or is it? To the guy that made up the 3 stages of matter, or like 4 stages of matter, are we sure that he's not full of SHIT? Is he lying? Are we sure he's not lying? I'm not a conspiracy theorist or anything. You know, I like to call out conspiracy theorists for their bat SHIT insane theories often, but you know, sometimes they might have a point. I'm not promoting conspiracy theories here. I'm trying to promote critical thinking. Are the 4 stages of matter real? Okay, I'm sorry. I'll stop trying to be funny and not being funny. Honestly, it's embarrassing. I'm 19 years old. But as you can see, the red team has indeed pushed into the Middle East. A lot of Turkey is being occupied in even northern Iran, and this is due to the fact that the red team is just troops right into that region. I had to do it to emphasize the fact that they were indeed troops into that region. But the militaries will slowly but surely advance their way into the Middle Eastern region. This is now the new bloodiest front line of this war. It seems that every turn there's a new bloodiest battle, and it just keeps getting worse. The red team will slowly but surely start to sluggishly make their way to the 3 major capitals in the Middle East, or the northern Middle East, being Ankara, Baghdad, and Tehran. But the red team is particularly interested in taking out Turkey. So that's where they'll focus their forces, going along the northern coast of Turkey, using the Russian Navy to weaken Turkish defensive forces along the northern area of their country. And slowly but surely the red team will make their way over here to Ankara, and they will take the city. Psych, they won't take the city, they'll get pushed back. The blue team knows that they're kind of at a disadvantage in this war at this point. With Southeast Asia being gone, they lose a lot of power, but that's okay. China is populated full of 1.4 billion or 1.3 billion people. That's a lot of people you can put on the front lines. They might not be equipped well, they may not be trained, but hey, people with guns will do damage. Just look at the United States and all the school shootings that happened there. A lot of them. Guess what? People with guns are doing that. Istanbul will be holding out for a little bit here. In fact, they're going to be holding out for the entire rest of the video. Istanbul is hard to invade geographically. Just ask, you know, the Eastern Roman Empire, Constantinople. That lasted for a while until Turkey took it, or the Ottomans took it. It was Turkish Muslims. So basically the Ottomans, right? Actually, I do not remember. I had a whole class studying the history of that era. What was the official name of the people that took over the capital of, or Constantinople, when they renamed it Istanbul? It was the Muslim Turks. I know that, but did they have a name? I forgot. Dude, I'm so American, it sucks. There goes Lebanon and Damascus. So we have 2 capital cities falling over here. And at this point, those oil reserves in the Middle East might be running out. They might have used a little bit too much oil, especially with the grand contraption up here in Russia that, you know, released millions of tons of oil and drowned a lot of people. No, Timmy, that didn't actually happen. I'm joking. Okay, but I want to be real with you guys at this point. This war likely wouldn't see a realistic end. It would stalemate, and you know, it's so hard to like think of these wars happening in real life. This is a bizarre scenario. Impossible to take place geopolitically. This makes 0 sense. India, Pakistan on the same team, Israel, Iran on the same team. Even to an extent, you know, Russia, Georgia on the same team here. There's a lot of concessions being made for the this video to happen, which makes it extremely unrealistic in nature. But I do just want to say, I don't want to be completely unrealistic here and just have the red team swipe out and delete the blue team. So I'm saying now that this would stalemate. The red team, which is about to win the video, would not be able to take over the entirety of the blue team. There's just too many people, too many militaries, way too many nationalistic countries here that would not give up fighting ever for this to actually happen. So that's just kind of like my last point to you guys before I kill the Middle East. I'm sorry, it just has to happen. There has to be a pure winner in these videos. I can't just have a stalemate. Then you guys are like left unsatisfied. So Israel gets wiped off the map to the joy of all their allies. God, that's horrible. Anyway, there's parties happening in Tehran at the same time they're being bombed by China. It's a very confusing time in Iran. No one knows what's happening. Israel's dead, but China's bombing us. So they're happy and sad, but mostly sad, because Israel being wiped off the map would be a lot of people dead, and that's not a good thing. But I mean, at this point, there's already been millions upon millions of people wiped off the map as well, including Iran. They're starting to lose. In fact, they have no more major cities, and let's say the people overthrew them. It's not too unlikely, especially if they were to be able to get rid of their dictatorship, their very mean, horrible dictatorship that they have. The CIA and the UK might be responsible for the current situation in Iran. Well, not entirely, or more so like indirectly responsible. They did some things in the late 70s, you know, the whole revolution that happened. Yeah, there might have been a little bit of collusion there. You know, earlier I said I don't like to push conspiracy theories. That's another conspiracy theory I'm pushing right now. I'm sorry. Hello? Just felt something hit my leg. I'm scared. Oh, it's a water bottle. Okay, that's fine. My biggest fear is like recording a video and then like I kick my foot and like, I don't know, this is a really weird fear, but like I kick my foot and like hit a snake and the snake bites me. Like, isn't that weird? That's such a weird thing to say. I might be like delirious right now. I think I'm tired. I gotta stop recording videos past 12 a.m. You know, at this point, this video isn't even really about the red team versus blue team anymore. It's just me yapping about stuff. Do you guys want me to end the video? I can end it. There goes Saudi Arabia's capital. Okay, I'll lock in for the end. At this point, you know, the Middle East is pretty much done for. All you have now is Arabia, and those oil supplies are running low, which means that the Indian subcontinent likely isn't getting fueled as much as they would like to be. Now, could these nations be importing stuff from foreign nations? I'm sure they definitely would be, and these two sides would be getting support from, you know, countries across the world. Believe it or not, the West would... who would the West help in this war? I was going to say they would likely help out the blue team, but then you have to look at the red team. They have you have Korea, you have Japan and Taiwan, the Philippines, even Vietnam to an extent. Yeah, those are all like kind of Western allies. But then if you help them, you're also indirectly helping out Russia and China, who are not your allies in the West. Those are your two biggest enemies. China being number one according to NATO/the EU. But the blue team has countries like Israel and India in it. Those are Western-ish allies. I say ish because of India. And then Turkey, of course, they have ties to the West with NATO, but NATO doesn't exist, so ignore that. So let me know in the comments, who do you guys think the West would support in this war? That is kind of like the big question, because whoever the West supports would have a better chance at winning. Surely because the United States would be helping the West, of course. The United States is like the leader of the West. The whole idea of like modern Westernism stems from the United States. Not historical Westernism, but modern Westernism. And getting aid from the US is good. US #1 military in the world. Yeah. So their money, good money. So, okay, this is the point in the war where it's actually going to stalemate. I'm going to end the video here because invading Afghanistan, as we all know, is not possible. The only way you could possibly invade Afghanistan is sinking it into the ocean. And as we know, that's not happening anytime soon. So, with that being said, and with the mountains of Afghanistan protecting Pakistan and the probably millions of troops protecting these remaining countries, the video is over. Now I'm going to give you guys a formula to how the red team could win this war. You take Sri Lanka, you beat the Indian Navy, make a landing in southern India, and then go in from the south. And that would be a brutal campaign. Really, really hard campaign. Invading India at all is going to be hard. But beating the entire navy of India and Pakistan, and then, you know, then having to fight all of their army in a war of existence, yeah, good luck. That's going to be hard. This war would take probably years to fight. So I'll leave the rest to you guys. Let me know in the comments. Do you think the blue team would win? Do you think the red team would win? But with that being said, that is the end of today's video. So if you guys did enjoy it, make sure to leave a like on it and subscribe to the channel if you're new. All the support is super greatly appreciated as we're trying to get to 200,000 subscribers by August 1st. I got 9 hours to edit this, upload this, make a thumbnail, and post it for you guys to enjoy. I'm feeling pretty good about it, but we'll see. If there's no video at 11 a.m., then you know why. But if there is a video, hi. Hello from 9 hours ago. Hello, notification gang. Hello. It's like 11, probably like 11:25 for you guys, maybe 23, 24, somewhere around that range. I'll stop talking. Thank you all so much again for watching this video, and I will see you all in the next one. And of course, thank you to all our super fans. This includes Chillturn Mapping, Omega the YouTuber, Illy Goated, Nevada Garbage Trucks, Vista Mapper, Xander Pro Productions, Geo1010 Gamer, Knighthood7353, and Golden Ball Mapping, 101 Rotanami T, King Cheese, Australian Geo Guy, Serminator, Icy Static FN, CTG on YT, Eagsco, Euroball, Augusto, A Norwegian, RS, Gail Martinez, Zaylance, what in the world? Freezioi, Laser Taze, Pablo Sigma Cat, Death Strider X, Hammer Toad 45, and DW Cool Dude. Once again, thank you guys.